Hello there, World of Tankers, and welcome to the channel. I'm your host, World of Blitz, and in today's video, we are going to be taking a look at the Tier 8 Italian auto-reloading double-shot heavy tank, the Bisonte. It's obviously going to be a premium, and a very interesting premium at that. Now, because this tank is coming into the game, it could allude to the fact that we might be seeing Italian heavy tanks like the Rinocerante, but that's obviously a big speculation. We just had the Italian tank destroyers, which basically play like heavies added into the game, so that's a far-fetched belief. I think that in the future we will see Italian heavies. I mean, it's just a no-brainer. Eventually they will come into the game, but I don't think they're going to come in for a very, very long time, at least within the next year. I don't think you will be seeing anything with this tank until maybe next year. So, with that aside, we're going to be breaking into the statistics of this tank and as well the armor profile. And man, it's a really interesting vehicle. I'm actually really excited for this tank. So first things first, let's talk about its DPM. Sure, says 2054, however that's not the case because this is an auto reloader, and more specifically, a very weird double shot auto reloader. Basically, you have a 6.34 second reload for your first shell, and then a 16.3 second reload for your second shell. So it's honestly really unique. If you shoot the tank with your first shell, you have a 6.34 second shot plus the 2 second interclip, which is 8.34. So if we do 60 divided by 8.34, that means you have 7.19 rounds a minute, multiply that by 310, and you have effectively 2,230 damage per minute, which is quite a bit better than the 2,075 that the T77 carries. However, if you decide to use it like a T77 and fire both shells, then that means you're going to have a 16.3 second reload for your shell, and that's not great because 60 divided by 16.3 is 3.6 rounds a minute. Multiply that by the 310 alpha and oh man, only 1100 damage per minute. So basically, for the most part, you want to use this tank as a single shot. You want to go bang, reload, bang, reload. You don't want to go bang, bang unless you need to, or it's just free and then you know you have plenty of time to reload. But for the most part, it's a single shot vehicle. Now, as a single shot, it has really good DPM. So making the argument, well, it's actually just a worse autoloader, that's not true. 2300 DPM. I mean, for example, if we were to bring out another heavy that has very similar statistics, I would say, as a gun, let's pull out the E75 TS, 2375 DPM, and this tank's actually considered really good DPM. It's only slightly more than the 2,200 that the Bisonte carries as a single shot. And if we get out an average heavy, kind of like, you know, the T32, for example, it's sitting at only 2,100. So I actually think the Bisonte's got really good DPM for a single shot. And using that second shell is actually going to be nice. It's not like the Italian tank destroyers where they don't have DPM. This vehicle actually does. Now, when it comes to penetration, pretty nice. 236 on the standard and 281 on the premium, which is slightly better than the 274 on the premium that the T77 carries. So, yeah, it's pretty nice, I would say, on the gun's specific penetration values. Aiming time, it's pretty similar. It's the same dispersion as we can see and only 3% better aiming time. So overall, almost the same. But we can also see that it's got a bit worse on movement dispersion values. So while it may have a little bit better aiming time than the T77, it has a lot worse on movement values, making it actually bloom quite a bit when driving the vehicle. Gun depression, it sits at 8 degrees, which is a bit less than the 10 the T77 carries. However, I don't think it's going to make a huge difference overall because 8 degrees is still plenty to work almost any ridgeline with. Mobility-wise, these tanks are very similar. You can see the top speed is 35 for both, and the reverse speed is 19 on the Bisonte and 18 on the T77. The real difference is the effective power to weight on the Bisonte is 13.6, and the effective on the T77 is 16, which makes it a lot more mobile, but that's only on hard terrain, because if you notice, on medium terrain, these tanks are almost identical on mobility. Medium terrain is any sort of not road. So hard terrain was driving on, you know, Himmelsdorf ground. It's driving on Castilla's main roads. But if you're driving on any sort of grass or you're driving on dunes, that is where you're actually on medium terrain, which means that overall the mobility is very similar between these tanks. And I gotta say, the T77 actually looks a bit nicer with the fact that it has 28 degrees a second of traverse speed compared to the 26 that the T77 carries. Camouflage is exactly the same across the board for these tanks, and it won't make a huge difference. View range, pretty similar, a little bit better with the T77, and that actually will help out the tank quite a bit, especially if you're running optics on this tank. It actually is going to give it a huge, huge view range for a Tier 8 8 heavy. View range is something that a lot of people don't put into account. So those are all the base statistics of the tank, but obviously we want to break into the armor profile. So this is in-game looking at the armor. We can see that 297 heat, it's got a lot of weak spots, but as well a lot of red. If you notice the upper plate here, super red. The lower plate, super duper red. It's the mid plate that's actually pretty weak. The turret as well, the mantlet is completely red. The rear, yeah, pretty weak. That means any 150 millimeter is going to be able to HE the rear of this tank quite easily. Sides, also very weak. It's an Italian tank, and the Italians are not known for having good side armor. However, look at that frontal armor. 182 millimeters a pen, which is your average for tier 7, tier 8. Yeah, that's actually really dang red. And even with 297 millimeters of heat pen, the thing is still basically completely red, making it actually, it looks to me like an absolutely fantastic hull-down beast. And to further home in that idea, we're going to pull up Armor Inspector here, and you're going to see just the armor profile on this vehicle. It seems really good to me. This is an IS-6 with APCR, which is pretty good pen. 200 and I would say 30 with standard because we're running Cali. So you can see the lower plate weak, only 57. Like, that's awful. For example, if we got out an ISU 152 with HE, yeah, it's bad. You can actually pen the lower plate with HE of an ISU, so keep that in mind. Not great armor on the lower plate, but at the same time, it's not weak enough that your average HE is going to pen it, which is nice. It's good enough, right? When it comes to the upper plate, the mid part is pretty weak. It's only about 160. However, once you get to the upper part of the plate here, it goes really thick to like 270, 280 to 300 millimeters thick. And when you add that on with the fact that the turret's mantlet is upwards of 350 and the edges of the turret are 250, yeah, this tank actually has really dang good armor. If you load heat with 297, this is what you see on flat. That's actually pretty dang good. You can see the upper plate's basically all red at certain angles. The mantlet's incredibly thick, and watch this. If you're running enhanced armor and you're using it hull down, this is what you see. Holy crappy-oli. That is incredibly strong hull-down armor. If you're using this tank and you have a brain, what you're going to do is this right here. You're going to hide that weak lower plate, and all the enemy's going to see is this when you're using your 8 degrees of gun depression, which is basically completely red. I mean, heck, you got a weak spot here and here, but that's not even a huge weak spot. You're firing standard. You're going to have no chance of penetrating that. I mean, heck, let's see what this vehicle looks like against an ISU. I have a feeling it won't be amazing, yeah. So you can definitely see tank destroyers will butter through it. But the fact that your average tier 8 heavy is really going to struggle to pen this thing, it really is absolutely fantastic armor hull down. And when you add that in with the fact that this tank is decently mobile, also the fact that this tank is a very, very decent DPM, it's actually going to be quite an enjoyable tank. Side armor-wise, not great. I mean, it's only about 88 millimeters thick. Side of the turret's only about 103, although I should point out that it is all space, so you're not going to HE the sides. But the rear, oh boy, pretty weak. 46 and 52, which means that HE shells, even from this tank, which has some of the lowest HE caliber in the game, can easily pen it. And look at this. I mean, oh man, it's bald. I mean, even an ISU shooting HE at the rear, it's all a pen. So you got to keep that in mind. But as I did say, the sides and the whole turret, you can see actually has some spaced right here. So it is very nice that the turret's actually got pretty good armor overall. I think the Bisonte looks like a very strong tank, and I'm excited for it to come into the game. It doesn't look anything overly stupid broken unless you're using it fully hull down, but even then, it still has its fair share of weak spots, and as long as you poke that frontal armor, I mean, it's really not that strong. Hopefully, you enjoyed today's video, and if you'd like to see more like it, please consider smashing that subscribe button down below. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.